Thank you. Awesome. So my name is Lara. I'm a personal banker at the TD on Main Street in North Bay. And this is my colleague. His name is Drake. He's a personal banking associate at the same location as well. We have a presentation for you guys, but before we get started, we just wanted to say thank you to the members and leaders of Nipissing First Nation for inviting us here today and allowing us to give this presentation. We're looking forward to the time and we're grateful to be able to spend this time with you guys. Thank you for coming. So we have a little presentation prepared for you guys. It's pretty basic, but we're going to cover 3 different topics. So budget, credit, and investing. So we'll delve into each topic. Small group. So like Drake mentioned, if you have questions, you can feel free to use the microphone, chime in at any time, wait to the end, or come and see us after, whatever you're most comfortable with.
So the first topic we'll talk about is budgeting. So a budget is a plan that you use to look at your income and your expenses over a certain period of time, like a month or a year. The goal of a budget is to help you manage your finances, make informed decisions about your finances, and ensure that you're meeting your short and long-term goals. So there's 3 rules of budgeting that anyone can use to put together a budget. But that being said, anyone's particular budget is going to be very different from anybody else's. That's a very personal thing depending on your kind of specific circumstances. But these 3 rules kind of help anybody put one together. So the first rule is to prioritize your money. So this means to create a plan for how your money is going to be spent, to set certain limits of how much you're going to spend on certain things, and to do your best to stick with that. So the rule number 2 is to look forward. So that means thinking about purchases or life events that are going to happen in 1, 2, 5, 10 years in the future, and taking the time to plan for them and to have some sort of idea of how you're going to manage them. So the rule number 3 is to adjust and realign. So that's to take a look at your budget a year in the future or any amount of time in the future, and to see how you how well you stuck to it, and to then make changes to it depending on your specific life circumstances and what has changed since you initially came up with it. So first, we're going to take a quick step back and ask ourselves why we're actually making a budget. So it can help you track your spending, make sure you're paying down your debts, and better plan for the future. And can, for a lot of people, help them feel more at ease dealing with their finances or thinking about their finances when they can kind of see it in front of them and think about what's going on. So we're going to take a look at an example budget to kind of give us some better ideas of it. So this is our example. It's Jordan's budget is the name of the person. So they bring in $4,000 a month. They lose about $800 of it to certain payroll deductions, and they get $300 in government grants, bursaries. That might be something like child tax benefits, something like that, bringing them to $3,500 a month to spend, to allocate to their budget. So then we're going to look at Jordan's expenses here. So on the right, you see their needs and their wants. So their rent, their debt repayment, and some other things. Just want to ask you guys, what jumps out at you when you look at their income and their expenses? Anything in particular? No worries if you don't know, that's fine. So what I would say jumps out at me is that their monthly expenses are more than their monthly income. So they're paying $200 more a month on their expenses than they're bringing in. And so that's not very sustainable. So we're going to look at kind of changing up Jordan's budget here. So we're going to use the 50-30-20 rule. So that means using 50% of your income towards your needs, so any essential things, 30% towards savings and debt repayment, and then 20% towards savings and debt repayment, and 30% to wants. So we kind of changed around Jordan's expenses on the right there, and it leaves them with $1,050 for that discretionary spending after they do their debt repayments and their savings and any required expenses. So now that we've kind of looked at putting together a budget, we can kind of talk about those specific categories. So one of the most important things for a lot of people is like debt repayment. That was in that needs category, thing that kind of stresses a lot of people out and can be a real challenge to kind of tackle. So with a budget, it can be a lot easier to manage those things. So we're gonna kind of look at some strategies to help navigate that topic of debt and debt repayment. So a lot of people ask, like, how can they begin paying down their debt? They don't really know where to get started outside just making the monthly payment. But one big thing that we usually recommend is something called debt consolidation. So you can take some other high interest debts, like say credit card debts or things like that, and put them all together into a lower interest rate, like debt consolidation loan, to help make the interest payments and monthly payments more manageable, and just kind of make it a little simpler in your mind of just having the one payment. And so that just can kind of help you get rid of that credit card debt and other things like that. So as we wrap up that section about budgeting, one more like important question a lot of people have is, should I pay down my debt or should I be saving? So it's kind of a question the answer is going to be different for everybody. So something you have to ask yourself to be able to think about that is how comfortable you are with your debt and if it causes you any sort of like psychological stress. And another thing you need to look at is the interest rate of that debt. So at like typical credit card interest rates of like 20, 21%, usually it will be better to pay down that first. But if you have something like a mortgage or a lower interest rate loan, sometimes it can be better to save it depending on how you feel about the debt and if it stresses you, like I said.
So did you guys have any questions about the budgeting piece? No? Okay. Questions at the end too, whenever you want. So we're going to move into credit. So credit in broad terms is the concept of borrowing money. It can come in a lot of different forms, such as like a credit card, line of credit, mortgage, loan, all that fun stuff. So we're going to go into what is a credit score, how to build a credit score, what is credit made up of, credit card, stuff like that. So to start, we'll talk about credit cards. So I feel like you guys probably have credit cards. You are over the age of 18. But if not, a credit card essentially is similar to a debit card, except you're borrowing the funds. So say, for example, you're going to No Frills to make a purchase for your groceries. If you use your debit card, it comes right out of your bank account at that time. If you put it on a credit card, it comes off the credit card, but you essentially don't pay it until your statement is finished or when the due date is, before the due date, hopefully. But you don't have to pay it at that moment type thing. You can pay it a few weeks later once your statement comes in. So it's essentially borrowing the funds in the short term, if that makes sense. With a credit card, like I had mentioned, you'll have a statement period. It'll say from this day to this day, you've bought X amount of items for X amount of dollars. Please pay this amount before your due date here. If you have the capacity to pay it in full, great, no interest will apply. However, if you can't make the full payment, it's very important to make at least the minimum payment. And with the minimum payment being applied, you will have to pay interest on the rest of the balance. So we have a little display here that kind of goes over what that interest might look like. And interest is essentially the cost of borrowing for spending funds on a credit card. So say, for example, you spend $1,000 and your interest rate is 25%. The interest accumulation for that month would be about $20.50. So something to keep in mind. So best if you can to make the payment in full so you don't have to pay that $20 in interest. But if not, the minimum payment will be good to keep your credit intact. But if you can make it in full, you'll save money on interest. I would say standard for a credit card, like Drake had mentioned, is probably around 20%. There's some that are higher, some that are lower as well, different types of cards to meet your needs as well. With a credit card, very generic, but there are some fees associated with most credit cards. So we'll go through those together. One is a late fee. So say, for example, your payment is due on the 31st of May and you make it on June 5th. You may get charged with a late fee for not being on time for that bill. Another fee is an annual fee. Not all credit cards have annual fees, and in my opinion, they can be a good thing. With different credit cards, you can earn like travel points or rewards, cashback dollars. So basically, the more you spend on the card, you earn points that you can then maybe apply to your balance. You can use for travel, stuff like that. So certain cards will have an annual fee. If you do have an annual fee, you just want to make sure that the benefits you're getting out of that credit card outweigh the annual fee. Because there are options for an annual fee and without an annual fee as well. The next fee is a cash advance. So that's when you would maybe use your credit card at like an ATM to withdraw like a $20 bill. Interest starts accruing right away and they charge you a fee for it. So if you can use your debit card, please do. That's what I recommend. And the fee is relative to how much you take out. And then another common fee on there would be a foreign exchange fee. So traveling in a different country, the institution may charge you a fee to use that credit card in a different country. Yeah.
So now that we've went over the basics of like what a credit card is, how you use it, the biggest question after that is usually how does that affect a credit score, or even what is a credit score? So we'll talk a little bit about that and look at some habits that might help you improve your credit score, or that would best help you build a good credit score. So credit score, it's a 3-digit number from 300 to 900. It is like your financial resume. That's how you can think of it. So it measures your credit worthiness, or the confidence in how well you'll pay back your debt, or your consistency in paying back your debt. So it's something that like banks, car dealerships, sometimes even like employers or landlords might look at to see how well you've been paying back your debts. So we're going to compare two people's use, like habits of their credit cards, and see how this might affect their credit scores. So first we have Anna. Anna makes large payments using her credit card, or large purchases using her credit card, sorry. So she would typically have about a balance of $950, and then she makes the minimum payment, about $125 a month on that until she pays it off, and then makes another large purchase. While Mike uses his credit card for his day-to-day expenses, so things like buying groceries, getting gas, maybe he has his Netflix subscription on his credit card, and he pays it all off by the due date every month. So he makes that $950 payment at the end of each month. So there's some benefits to what Mike is doing that we'll talk about a little bit more. So both Anna and Mike both use their cards in a way that a lot of Canadians do. They're both very common to either just be making the minimum payment or to be paying it off in full each month. But they can differ in how well your credit score will be built. So a little bit more details about the credit score. It's calculated by these companies called the credit bureaus in Canada. Their job is to track your credit and to give you these credit scores. And we're going to talk about ways of how you can improve those. So different things that can actually like affect them, we have listed here. So your payment history. So they're going to look at how frequently you've been making those payments, and if you've ever missed any, how often you miss them. They're also going to look at the average amount of debt that you hold on your credit cards. So both Anna and Mike were the same there. They had about $950 every month. And the recommendation here is that it shouldn't exceed more than 40% of all the credit you've been extended. That's similar to that credit utilization. So just how much of the credit you've been extended are you using on a month-to-month basis? Then they also look at the length of your history. So how long you've had credit cards and have been, responsibly using them. And also how many new credit requests you've had. So the more often you're applying for credit, it can actually hurt your score if you're doing a lot of applications in a short amount of time. So considering all those factors, Mike would have a better credit score considering how he's using it. Since he's paying it off in full every month, keeping his debt load low, and responsibly using it, he would have a better credit score than Anna. but Anna would also have a good credit score because she responsibly pays it every month. So building that credit score, like we said, is an important part of your kind of total financial health. Does anybody have any questions regarding, how to build it? The best ways, anything like that? Sounds good. Mhm. Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to get into investing basics as well. I just want to preface, this is very, very generic. Investments in finances are not necessarily like a one size fits all for everyone. There's different needs, risk tolerance, comfortability that everyone might have. So we're not really going to delve into types of investments as in like mutual funds, GIC stocks, but more than happy to discuss those with you guys afterwards or in an appointment, whatever you'd feel comfortable with. We're more so going to focus on the different style of accounts that you can have to hold your investments, if that makes sense. And we just want to preface as well that each account has different pros and cons and tax benefits that might not be a one size fits all for everyone as well. But we'll just kind of give like a brief overview and chime in if you guys have any questions. And if you want to know more about specific investments itself, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have too. So the first investment account that we're going to discuss is a registered retirement savings plan, often known as an RSP. So typically the purpose of this account is to save for retirement or for a long-term goal. How it works is when you put money in the account, you get a tax credit or a tax deduction. So say, for example, your annual income is $50,000 a year and you deposit $5,000 into the account for the year. Your income for tax purposes would be about $45,000 with that tax deduction. So it's going to help boost your potential tax return and make it a little bit higher. The idea is that typically when you're working, you're in a higher tax bracket compared to when you're retired. So when you take it out in retirement, the tax implications will be lessened, if that makes sense. Oops, thank you. There are two ways that you can accumulate your contribution room. One is 18% of the earned income that you reported on your tax return for the previous year, or the annual RSP limit, whichever one is lower, unfortunately. And typically this is used for retirement purposes, but there are instances where you can take money out without the tax implications, and that is for the first-time homebuyers plan. So we'll get into that more later. Yes, you have a question? Thank you.
But it's, well, I'm pretty sure they can hear me. But anyways, if you put money in the RSP, which is like, if we're going to get some money from our whatever we're going to get, you're putting it into a place where it's going to be taxed.
So there is tax implications when you pull it out. So the idea is that you use it later in life when you're retired, when you're in a lower tax bracket. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now, I was just telling letting people know that if they put it in and you pull that out, you're going to tax it.
Yes.
So you're hoping to get at retirement, you're hoping to get lower income and pull a little bit out so that you equal your taxes. Okay.
Yeah. So like I had mentioned earlier, these accounts are not necessarily a one size fits all for everyone. Some people would benefit from the tax credit in an RSP and some might not. Like she had mentioned over there, The next account we're going to talk about, I like a lot. So it's called a tax-free savings account. So you don't get a tax credit when you put money in, but the money that you do deposit into the account can grow tax-free. So say, for example, you deposit $10,000 in there and your investment earns another 10,000 and your balance is 20, you can take out that 20 and you don't have to pay taxes on the growth that you've earned, which is very, very nice. So this account came about in 2009. And every year since then, the government comes out with contribution room. It's a different number every year. So it just kind of depends. But I think total your accumulated contribution room, if you were Canadian resident and at least 18 in 2009, should be about 95,000. So it's a very great style of account to have because you can grow your money. Say you pick an investment, makes $1 million. Well, that's in your pocket. You don't have to worry about the tax implications, which is super, super nice. Something to be mindful of is your contribution room. So if you put money in, just keep in mind you can't recontribute it if you take it out until the following tax year. If you haven't used your contribution room for previous years, it doesn't get lost. You can carry it forward until you're ready to use it. You look like you might have a question.
Another thing about the tax-free account that we'd like to mention is it doesn't, any income that you earn or withdraw from that wouldn't affect any sort of like taxation status. So we know that I believe it's if you live and derive 90% or more of your income on the reserve, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's how they do that. Anything coming out of this would not be considered income to change that. So it can definitely be, like you were saying, a good like shelter for any sort of investments or investment income.
So if you put money into this tax free, you can work with that money in the tax free account. Going to GS, still paying.
Yeah. So the tax-free is the style of account, but you can choose all sorts of different investments to invest your money within that account. It's just how this is structured. Correct. You could do cashable GICs and non-cashable GICs, whatever your risk tolerance prefers and your time horizon is for your money. Mm-hmm. Any questions about the tax-free? No? Okay, awesome. So one more account that we'll go over. This is a fairly new account. It's a first home savings account. It kind of mixes the benefits between a tax-free and an RSP, and it's specifically designed to help people save for their down payment on their first house. So how it works is the year in which you open it, you get $8,000 worth of contribution room, and you get another $8,000 every year after up until you hit a cap of $40,000. One thing to be mindful of is, say, for example, you opened it in 2023, you have until the end of the following year, so end of 2024, to use 2023's contribution room. So it does expire, whereas in the other accounts it doesn't. So with this account, you get a tax credit when you put money in, which can potentially boost your tax refund to further your down payment, depending on your tax structure. And your money can grow tax-free within the account. No tax implications when you take it out, as long as you use it for the purposes of a down payment as a first-time home buyer. Awesome. So we went over budgeting, credit, investment accounts. Be happy to answer any questions about specific investments that you have as well. We have some videos and tools that you guys are welcome to use on our website. We have some cards here at the table as well, if you wanted to kind of have like a more in-depth appointment as well. Did you guys have any questions or anything? No? Thank you for your time and for coming. We really appreciate you being here and your questions and feedback as well. Awesome.